Midnight doesn't come with fanfare. It just slides in silently, like a thief with cold fingers and a mean streak. The hut is dark now. Not cozy dark, but absolute. You could wave your hand an inch from your face and not see a thing. You could whisper and feel the sound go nowhere. The fire's embers glow faintly, the last heartbeat of the day. And that's when the rustling starts. Not dramatic rustling, just bodies shifting, straw creaking, the occasional cough from someone who's either got a winter cold or is allergic to their bedmate's feet. You blink. You were asleep. Sort of. Maybe. It's hard to tell, because this isn't a modern 8-hour Netflix-induced coma. This is segmented sleep. 2 chunks, separated by a very cold, very awake intermission. It's what historians call first sleep and second sleep. Medieval people often didn't sleep through the night. You'd go to bed early, wake up after 4 hours, and stay awake for 1 or 2, then sleep again until dawn. Why? Because your body and your hut have no idea what normal sleep hygiene is. You wake up because it's cold, or because someone moved, or because the cow snorted too loud, or because it's just what everyone did. You sit up, shoulders wrapped in a blanket that's more whole than cloth. Around you, others are awake too. Quietly. Not talking much. Just existing in that liminal zone between night and more night. One man pokes at the fire, trying to coax a little warmth from it. Someone else wanders outside to relieve themselves, and you wish them luck, because it's 2 degrees and their shoes probably have holes. Inside, the hut sighs. That's the best way to describe it. It breathes. Walls pop with settling wood. A distant owl hoots. The baby, thankfully, doesn't cry. Everyone shifts and rustles and waits for sleep to take another pass through the room. You lie back down, curling tighter. But now you're listening. Really listening. The night is full of subtle sounds. A distant dog barking. Wind whispering through cracks. Something tiny nibbling near the food sack. That's not good. You hope it's not another rat. Last week someone woke up to one on their chest. Still not over it. In this middle of the night moment, strange things happen. People pray. Not loud, dramatic prayers, just murmurs. A soft Hail Mary. A whispered plea to Saint Nicholas, patron of chill-inducing weather and lost things, like warmth and patience. Others work. Not with hammers and saws, but with thread and thought. A woman nearby is weaving cord. Her hands know the motions even in darkness. Some folks mend clothes or count out beans. It's a strange little pocket of activity before the cold wins again and drags everyone back to unconsciousness. Some even get a little romantic. That's right. Midnight was often the time couples found a rare moment of privacy. Well, as private as you can get with 3 kids, 2 goats, and your in-laws sleeping 3 feet away. But hey, love finds a way. Or at least mild affection and a shared blanket. And here's a fun fact, historians still argue whether segmented sleep was biologically natural or culturally trained. Was it a consequence of early bedtimes and lack of light? Or was it how humans are meant to sleep, when not distracted by LED screens and double shifts? You don't know. You just know your back hurts and your feet are cold. Eventually, the hut quiets again. the second wave of sleep rolls in like fog, slow and heavy. The man by the fire stops poking it. The woman weaving cord lies down again. Someone snores. It's the rhythm of survival. Sleep when you can, stay still when you can't, and never let your feet touch the cold floor unless it's absolutely necessary. And what about night guards? Surely someone had to stay awake for danger. Not unless you're in a castle. In your little hamlet, everyone sleeps. The worst things out there are wolves and frost. The wolves keep to the woods. The frost, well, that's why you sleep in a bundle of humans and questionable smells. The fire gives one last pop before going still. You curl deeper, pulling the blanket over your nose, letting your breath warm your face. You finally slip back under, into the deep stretch of second sleep. And this time, it feels more like surrender. Not to the night, but to the fact that your body, somehow, has learned to survive like this. You drift off to the soundtrack of wind, snores, and distant dream murmurs. And if you wake again, it'll be to the soft grey light of morning and the sound of someone already stirring the gruel. But for now, finally, sleep has you. Dawn creeps in like an apologetic thief, slipping grey light under the doorframe and through the cracks in the shutters. It doesn't flood the room, it seeps. A dull glow that barely separates floor from wall, person from blanket, child from goat. You wake up slowly, the cold pressing against your cheeks like a wet cloth someone forgot to warm. You're in a nest of bodies. Not just family, but everyone who counts as household, including animals and at least one relative you still think might be part mole. You're not sure where your limbs end and someone else's begin. It's not gross, it's just logistics. Heat rises. People produce heat. And medieval peasant logic says, if it shivers, pile it in. Your back is pressed against your cousin's spine. A toddler sleeps on your arm. The dog has claimed your legs. Somewhere under the covers, a chicken clucks indignantly, probably annoyed you're still breathing on her. No one talks. Everyone just breathes, foggy clouds wafting into the cold air, visible proof that you're still alive. Getting up is an ordeal. You don't leap out of bed, you extricate yourself like a slow-motion escape artist, peeling back layers of wool, woven straw, and someone's elbow. As you rise, the air hits you. It's colder than any reasonable air should be. You shudder and instantly regret moving. But there's work to be done. Always. The bed is a platform. Wood, maybe stone. Covered in straw that's seen better decades. Blankets aren't fluffy duvets, they're rough wool, patched skins, and whatever thick fabric could be spared. Some are cloaks reused for sleeping. Others are sacks sewn into squares. Quilts exist, but they're rare, stitched from scraps and pride and passed down like family secrets. If you're lucky, you've got something resembling a pillow. If not, you bunch up a tunic and call it luxury. And don't think for a second that you have your own bed. Unless you're old, sick, or noble, you share. Parents, kids, siblings, all squished together like turnip mash. It's the medieval way. Privacy's not a thing. If you want solitude, go stare at the pig pen and ponder your choices. But back to the real MVP of medieval winter nights, the blanket. These aren't just covers. They're layered survival tools. Families used multiple types, coarse wool over linen, fur-lined cloaks atop straw padding. some even stuffed bedding with feathers, moss, or dry leaves. You do what you must. One woman in a neighboring village famously used dried nettles. She survived, but she itched until spring. Layering didn't stop at the body. Beds themselves had layers. A mattress stuffed with straw, topped with a feather sack if you were lucky. And then the blankets. Then cloaks. Then people. Then the weight of your regrets and everyone else's breath. And remember, the heat you woke up with is entirely human-made. No radiator. No hot water bottle. Just your own body, your sister's armpit, and a goat named Agnes curled at your feet. Speaking of Agnes, she stirs now, bleats softly, and nuzzles your ankle. She's not just company. She's warmth. In colder months, it was common, especially among the very poor, to bring animals inside. Chickens roosted in corners. Pigs snored by the door. Calves huddled close to infants. It was like Noah's Ark, if Noah had a mold problem and a much lower ceiling. Historians still argue whether the presence of livestock indoors was standard or exceptional. But in areas with brutal winters and few options, the answer is simple: if it generates heat and doesn't bite, it sleeps indoors. You grab your outer tunic, pull it on over your night clothes, which are really just slightly thinner day clothes, and shove your feet into shoes that still carry yesterday's chill. The dog follows you, wagging its tail once, because that's all it can manage before it flops back onto the warm spot you just vacated. Someone else begins to stir the fire. The morning ritual. Blow on the embers. Add twigs. Whisper sweet nothings until it roars back to life. If it doesn't, you're spending the day huddled and bitter, cooking nothing, and considering eating things you probably shouldn't. But today, the fire sparks. A thin column of smoke snakes upward. Someone cheers, quietly, but with feeling. That's enough warmth to boil water, warm hands, and maybe toast a bit of bread if any remains unchewed by mice. You glance back at the bed platform. The bundle of people you left behind shifts, sighs, pulls the blankets tighter. They'll rise when the fire's stronger, or when their noses go numb. Whichever comes first. And you? You feel your limbs slowly wake. Your breath no longer fogs so thick. Your feet are cold, yes, but your spine is straight, your mind is clear, and you've survived another night. Wrapped in fur, linen, and the quiet pride of someone who didn't freeze, you stand by the fire and sip hot gruel. Agnes watches you, expectantly. You toss her a scrap. She approves. Tonight, it'll all happen again: shared beds, thick blankets, midnight awakenings, and animal breath in your hair. But for now, the world turns. And you? You made it to morning. By mid-morning, the frost on the shutter edges begins to weep under the growing warmth of the fire. Warmth, of course, being a generous term. It's now slightly less frigid than the inside of a forgotten grave. But still, progress. Your stomach reminds you it exists with a loud, indignant growl. Time for breakfast, which in a medieval peasant hut translates to, let's see what hasn't rotted, frozen, or been stolen by the rat gang. You reach for the pot by the fire and give it a stir. Steam wafts up from within, releasing a familiar scent that's equal parts comforting and deeply unexciting. It's gruel. Again. Medieval winter cuisine wasn't known for variety. In fact, it's best described as the holy trinity of peasant staples: grains, roots, and whatever didn't run away when you opened the larder. You ladle out a thick, lumpy portion of the oat-based mush into a cracked wooden bowl. It jiggles slightly. You pretend not to notice. This is barley or oat gruel, depending on what was cheapest last harvest. It's boiled with water and maybe a little milk if the cow is feeling generous. Salt? If you're fancy. Honey? Only if you're friends with the beekeeper and willing to trade secrets or sheep. Next to you, someone chews a cold turnip like it's a divine treat. Turnips are the potato of medieval winters, ubiquitous, starchy, and slightly depressing. Other root vegetables like parsnips or carrots might appear, but they're pale, twisted, and boiled into submission. The vegetables stored in your larder, or more accurately, a pit in the ground outside the hut, are whatever survived the harvest and the mice. They're wrinkled, softening, and vaguely judgmental. Still, you slice a carrot stub into your gruel like a rebel chef on a shoestring budget. Occasionally, a stew might be bubbling over the fire, made from dried peas, beans, or lentils. The term pea pottage gets thrown around a lot, thick, greenish, and enthusiastic about staying with you all day, digestion-wise. If you're lucky, it has bits of dried meat or a bone for flavor. If not, it tastes like hope and hot water. Bread, too, makes an appearance, though it's more like a dense slab of chewable determination than the fluffy stuff you're imagining. It's made from coarse, stone-ground flour that leaves bits of grit behind. Many a tooth was lost to medieval bread. Dentists weren't a thing, but mashable food was. Sometimes, the bread's been hanging around since last week. It's hard enough to stop a minor siege. So you soften it by dunking it into your gruel. Congratulations, now you have gruel with soggy bread chunks, truly a breakfast of survivors. There's a faint smell of onions somewhere. Or maybe leeks. They're one of the few vegetables that sort of last into winter, often strung up inside the hut like sad little garlands of flavor. You may toss a bit into your bowl if there's extra. It's the culinary equivalent of accessorizing a very dull outfit with a single shiny button. But here's the thing, it works. Your bowl is warm. It fills your belly. It keeps your fingers from shaking. And in a world where food means fuel, that's enough. You eat slowly, savoring each bland spoonful like a monarch with no taste buds. Around you, others are finishing their meals. A child gnaws on a boiled beet like it owes him money. An older woman carefully spoons out marrow from a split bone, prized for its richness. Historians still debate whether peasant diets were as nutritionally disastrous as once believed, or whether they managed better than we give them credit for. Either way, calories were gold. Protein in winter is rare. Most livestock aren't slaughtered until they're too old to be useful, and fresh meat is a luxury. If you've got a bit of bacon fat or salt pork to flavor your stew, you guard it like treasure. Dried fish might appear if you're near a coast or a generous trader. Otherwise, protein comes from dairy, if the cow isn't dried up, or from pulses like lentils. Speaking of dairy, milk is scarce this time of year. Cows don't produce much in winter, and goats are only slightly more generous. You might get a bit of cheese, hard, salty, and with the consistency of brick dust. It's edible, technically, and pairs well with not starving. For drinks, there's no juice, no coffee, no smoothie. There's ale. Weak ale, brewed to be safer than water. Fermentation kills off the bad stuff, and it contains calories, so children drink it, too. If that shocks you, remember that medieval small beer had less alcohol than a modern kombucha. Water? Only if you're brave or boiling it first. Wells and rivers in winter are suspicious. You don't want to be the one who drinks unboiled water and spends the next 2 days regretting it intensely. You finish your gruel, wipe your mouth on your sleeve, and place your bowl near the fire for cleaning, assuming the soap hasn't frozen into a regret-flavored rock. The morning meal is done. It wasn't delicious. It wasn't pretty. But it was warm, filling, and it will get you to the next meal, which will be probably exactly the same. You stretch, burp, politely, and nod. Winter food in peasant life isn't about joy. It's about making it to spring. You lean back against the wall of the hut, bowl empty, belly filled, well, at least partially. It's a full feeling, but not the kind that brings satisfaction. More like insulation. You've added another layer to your internal sweater. And now, it's time for something truly sacred. Something no medieval peasant could live without. Something revered, loved, and potentially more critical to survival than bread or fire. Ale. Not the kind of ale that gets served in modern pubs with artistic labels and hints of citrus. No, this is small beer, a low-alcohol, slightly sour, murky beverage that tastes faintly of barley, faintly of sweat, and mostly of relief. You take a sip, and yep, still warmish, still flat, still better than water. Because let's get one thing straight, nobody drinks the water. Not unless it's been boiled within an inch of its life or filtered through a miracle. Wells are often contaminated, rivers flow downstream from things you don't want to think about, and stagnant water is basically a medieval dare. So people brewed. Everyone brews. Housewives, innkeepers, that old woman who always smells like wet wool. Brewing is a household task, a life skill, and occasionally an art form. The ale you're sipping was likely made right here in the hut. Maybe from barley, maybe oats. Whatever grain was available, really. It was mashed, steeped, boiled, cooled, then left to ferment for a few days in a wooden tub that has never, not once, been properly sanitized. But it does the trick. Small beer isn't strong. Kids drink it. Old folks drink it. You drink it all day long, because it hydrates you without threatening to kill you. It's mildly fizzy, cloudy with leftover grain particles, and it settles your stomach after too much gruel. You wipe your mouth and sigh. That's the good stuff. Or at least, the least dangerous stuff. On special days, or if you're feeling bold, you might brew a stronger batch. The kind that makes you see double and forget your chores. This is festival ale, wedding ale, we survived another plague ale. But most of the time, you stick to the light stuff. It keeps you steady, clear-headed, and mostly warm. You glance at the brew barrel near the fire. It's small and already half empty. Brewing in winter is tricky business. Yeast likes warmth, and your hut is barely above freezing most days. So fermentation is slow. Sometimes it fails completely, leaving behind a sad, soured mess better suited for pickling vegetables or enemies. And yet, you do it. Over and over. You brew because you must. Ale is more than drink. It's sustenance. Liquid calories. A source of nutrition, even. Historians argue about how much beer medieval peasants actually drank, but everyone agrees on one point: it was constant. Breakfast ale, midday ale, supper ale, nightcap ale. If you're dry, you're in danger. There's also the social aspect. Sharing a mug of ale with a neighbor is as good as signing a peace treaty. It's communal. You gather around the fire, pass the mug, and discuss things that matter: the health of the cow, the quality of the grain, who sneezed during church, and what it might mean. Ale is also storytelling fuel. You've never heard a decent ghost tale told over a bowl of water. But give a man a pint and a flickering fire, and suddenly he's recalling the time he saw St. Cuthbert in a turnip patch. Of course, ale doesn't fix everything. It can't grow grain in frozen fields. It can't unchop wood. And it can't stop that one neighbor from singing tunelessly every time he drinks too much. But it makes winter tolerable. You finish your mug and set it aside, already hoping there's enough left for evening. The fire crackles beside you, and your breath fogs the air in soft little bursts. The world is still grey and cold and full of things that might go wrong. But right now, you're warm inside. Not just from the ale, but from the routine, the ritual, the fact that even in the dead of winter, you've got something to sip, something to share, something that reminds you you're not doing this alone. Because in a world where the nights are long, the work is hard, and the water might betray you, ale is more than a drink. It's survival, fermented, poured, and passed hand to hand. The afternoon drags like a tired mule. Outside, the wind has taken on that special medieval quality, so cold it feels like it's got a personal grudge against your face. You've done the chores that can be done without risking your extremities, fetched some wood, scraped ice off the food pit lid, and shooed the goats away from the cabbage sack. Now you're back inside, huddled in the hut, slowly realizing that the long winter night is coming again, and so is the cabin fever. Let's be honest, you like your family. You also spend every waking and sleeping moment with them in a single room that smells like socks, soup, and sheep. That kind of closeness starts to rub, literally and emotionally. You can only pretend to be fascinated by your brother's attempts to carve a spoon for so long before your eye starts to twitch. But you can't leave. There's nowhere to go. The fields are frozen, the woods are dark, and your neighbor's house is just as cold, cramped, and grumpy as yours. So here you are, trapped in a hut with 7 people, 1 dog, 2 chickens, and the slow realization that someone has stolen your seat by the fire. You sit down anyway, awkwardly wedged between a sack of potatoes and your uncle's knee. He nods, says nothing. The silence is heavy, broken only by the rhythmic clack of someone spinning wool with a drop spindle and the occasional passive-aggressive sigh from your cousin, who definitely thinks you're in her spot. It's moments like these when cabin fever sets in, the slow, simmering madness of being confined for too long with too many smells and not enough distractions. You start noticing things. The way your sister hums off-key. The way the dog stares into the corner like it knows something. The way the wind howls through the same spot in the wall every 5 minutes like a ghost trying to join the conversation. You try to stay busy. Some families weave baskets or repair tools. Others prepare yarn for spring weaving or twist straw into mats. But after a while, your hands start working automatically, and your brain begins to wander into unhelpful territory. You remember that story about the farmer who went mad one February and tried to marry his ox. You're not there yet. But if the goat chews through one more food sack, it's going to get weird. The elders try to keep the peace. They tell stories, sing songs, or assign chores that are really just distractions in disguise. Go check the root vegetables, they say. As if the carrots are going to start a rebellion. But you go, because staring at wrinkled turnips is still better than listening to your little brother recite the same knock-knock joke he invented 2 weeks ago. Spoiler, it doesn't have a punchline. It's just the word goat over and over. Some folks claim winter is peaceful, that it offers rest. That's hilarious. Winter is a social experiment. It's you, your kin, and a structure made of mud and prayer, testing how long you can stay sane without sunlight or space. And yet, it's also where some of the best bonding happens. Not the sentimental kind, though there's a bit of that, but the slow, shared kind. You know the rhythm of everyone's breath. You can tell who's about to sneeze. You instinctively pass the wooden comb when someone reaches for their hair. Historians debate how common family cohesion was in peasant households, especially under the stress of winter. Some argue that communal living built resilience and cooperation. Others suggest it bred tension and led to the occasional accidental spill of stew on someone's lap. Probably both. Let's be honest. You reach for your spindle and start twisting wool. Not because you're excited about yarn, but because it gives your hands something to do while your brain tries to remember what sunshine feels like. The dog shifts, rests its head on your foot. You don't move. It's the warmest thing that's happened all day. Eventually, someone speaks. Remember that winter when the snow came up to the eaves? Everyone groans. And the roof collapsed on old Peter's outhouse. Now there's laughter. Real laughter. Not because it was funny then, Peter broke his arm, but because memory smooths out the sharp edges. Stories are your escape hatch. Tales of winters worse than this one. Of neighbors who did something stupider than what you're currently enduring. Of miracles, pranks, and the year someone tried to ski on washboards and broke 3 ribs. You laugh. You roll your eyes. You survive. Outside, the sky darkens. The fire is stoked. The pot is filled. Someone tosses in another onion and a splash of ale. It won't be gourmet, but it'll be hot. And as the wind rattles the walls and the smoke curls upward into the thatch, you look around at your fellow inmates, family, and realize that even with the bickering, the noise, and the ever-present smell of damp wool, you're lucky. Because cabin fever might be maddening, but it's also company. And in the deep heart of winter, that might be the only warmth that really matters.